She had all the favors that she was pulling in, and she had a ton of money behind her, and they were completely arrogant, and all the liberal elite in the media thought there was no chance that she was going to lose. She's 95% shoe-in to win the presidency, and she walked around like she was 95%.
She already thought she... 16.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
First of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump.
And then spent the next 4 years saying he was...
Picture a political world where podcasts turn into battlegrounds, cable news stops holding back, and one of the most powerful names in modern politics suddenly finds the spotlight, exposing things she worked hard to keep hidden. Before the internet even has time to react, Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly turn simple curiosity into complete chaos, pulling back layers that were never supposed to reach the public. What follows is not a calm discussion or a polite political debate, but a fast-moving and jaw-dropping unraveling that leaves reputation shaken and audiences wondering how everything escalated so quickly.
Hillary Clinton, where she was running for president, and she's more MAGA than MAGA.
I think we got to have tough conditions, tell people to come out of the shadow, and you have to try to learn English, and you have to wait in line.
She is talking about it. If you're a criminal, no ifs, ands,
Hillary Clinton has a very weird and I think shitty marriage. I don't think she has a husband who is in love with her or faithful to her, and I can't really blame him because she seems to have accepted this behavior since the inception of their marriage. And so past is...
Joe Rogan steps into the Hillary Clinton conversation the same way he approaches any topic that feels overly polished and heavily protected, by digging into it with raw, unfiltered curiosity until the carefully built image starts to crack.
Infuriated when people that I knew that I was friends with were trying to tell me that Hillary Clinton was a good choice. And that's the same choice. I'm like... Look, I don't know if she's murdered people, but I know that I worry that she's murdered people. That's a real... I really wonder. Like, this Seth Rich shit...
If you're enjoying this breakdown, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, while Hillary Clinton has often relied on carefully crafted explanations and favorable interpretations, Megyn Kelly approaches the same material with one clear belief: clarity matters. And no matter how important or historically significant the person may be, tough questions should never be off limits.
How dare she? She puts out this tweet, and it's a picture of her, a much younger Hillary, and the caption on the hat reads, "But her emails." And she writes in her tweet, "Bringing this back in light of recent news. Get a limited edition But Her Emails hat and support Onward Together groups working to strengthen our democracy." The nerve of this woman to have committed...
Joe Rogan has a style that strips away all the ceremony, and that can be especially damaging for someone like Hillary Clinton, whose authority has often depended on controlled settings and carefully respectful framing. The moment political claims stop being treated as final answers and start being questioned in open conversation, the narratives around Hillary Clinton begin to noticeably shake.
You're guilty of massive amounts of misinformation and disinformation as a part of a propaganda campaign.
Attorney General Pam Bondi has directed federal prosecutors to launch a grand jury investigation into members of the Obama administration over the 2016 Russia investigation.
A lot of them are guilty of it.
Yeah,
a lot of the people that are in that White House press conference, a lot of the organizations they work for, distributed absolute lies.
Total lies.
Tulsi Gabbard declassified documents that she says shows Obama administration officials manufactured intelligence to make it look like Russia interfered in the 2016 election.
Megyn Kelly then turns the pressure up by focusing on accountability instead of intention, which has never been an easy area for Hillary Clinton. The habit of focusing more on effort than results opens the door to even more criticism, especially when Megyn Kelly's sharp approach keeps pointing out how responsibility often seems to drift away from the center. The contrast becomes hard to ignore. Hillary Clinton's visible frustration with being challenged runs straight into Megyn Kelly's belief that criticism simply comes with the job. Joe Rogan makes things even more uncomfortable by treating Hillary Clinton's long history of controversy not as random isolated moments but as part of a familiar pattern. Megyn Kelly builds on that by questioning how Hillary Clinton has managed to present herself as both deeply powerful and constantly under attack at the same time, a balance that becomes difficult to maintain once the spotlight gets more direct. The idea that criticism automatically means unfair treatment quickly starts to fall apart when Megyn Kelly treats disagreement as something completely normal.
All this. And back to Hillary, You know, the whole, she has a hat she's tweeted herself out wearing, but her emails. She's tried to turn it into this ridiculous joke, like, oh, but the moon landing, like you nutcases who are still railing about this made up scandal, this thing that, you know, you've used to try to unfairly tar me. She did need to distract from that.
The jokes almost write themselves as Hillary Clinton's defenses start to feel less like explanations and more like automatic reflexes. Joe Rogan also highlights a strange contradiction in modern politics. Clinton often presents herself as a supporter of progress, yet she appears noticeably uneasy when things move outside of scripted settings. His style thrives on unpredictability, and that same unpredictability puts her carefully managed public image under pressure. The humor comes from watching a figure built on control trying to operate in a space that rewards openness and punishes over-planning. Megyn Kelly then takes a closer look at Clinton's changing political positions, which are often described as growth instead of convenience. But under sharper scrutiny, those shifts can start to look more like survival instincts presented as principles. Her precise questioning makes it harder to lean on broad ideas when the specific details tell a different story. And by treating Clinton's so-called inevitability as something to question rather than accept, Joe Rogan challenges the strength of that public image. The result is that the jokes land easily, as the idea of destiny slowly fades into explanations that never fully restore the original confidence.
You know, I was getting shot at. It's like, I can't imagine, I was just talking about lack of empathy. I can't imagine being in a situation where I'm on television and I'm saying things that are so removed from the truth.
Right.
Like, I can't wrap my head around that.
Well, Hillary did the same thing.
Well, she's a congenital liar, as she was referred to by the New York Times back in the day.
But, and rightly so, but people forget this. She did talk about a firefight that she was involved in.
I was under sniper fire. And the worst thing about that people didn't give a shit about, she said when she was in Bosnia, she was under sniper fire. It's like, wait a minute. You're throwing the secret.
Megyn Kelly sharpens that point by questioning why inevitability should ever protect someone from scrutiny, and her focus on outcomes over reputation turns Hillary Clinton's long career into something more like a mixed record that has to be examined rather than automatically respected. The humor builds as it becomes clear how much of Clinton's authority once depended on people feeling too uncomfortable to question it in the first place, while Kelly reinforces the tension by highlighting how performance and authenticity rarely sit easily together. When Clinton's attempts to appear relatable are actually analyzed instead of just accepted, they start to look like another layer of image management rather than genuine connection. And the satire lands more sharply as those efforts end up creating distance instead of closeness.
Put out this mug. We'll put it on the screen. You can see it here on my notes. Have you seen this?
I haven't seen it. I see a little
It's
one
a mug
on your
that's
notes.
got like an outline of her, and she's sipping a coffee, and it reads, "Turns out she was right about everything."
My God.
She tweeted it out, writing, or on Insta, "We recently had some new merch made based on a phrase I hear a lot. The design happened to be finalized today." This is the day of the conviction. "With your purchase, you'll support blah, blah, blah." Okay.
Wow. You've got to admire the evil in some way. You really do.
This is what makes me say, we need Steve Bannon.
Joe Rogan keeps challenging the idea that complexity should protect decisions from criticism, taking away one of Hillary Clinton's familiar ways of deflecting pressure. The humor builds as detailed explanations struggle to match simple outcomes, and audiences notice how much effort goes into avoiding direct accountability. Megyn Kelly then reframes Clinton's moral certainty as a weakness in itself, since certainty without transparency tends to create skepticism instead of trust. And her approach shows how moral authority can sometimes shut down discussion rather than encourage it. In the end, Joe Rogan strips away the aura around Clinton's legacy and makes it feel more ordinary. And once that sense of reverence is gone, what remains looks like ambition, missteps, and constant image control, with the humor coming from how sharply that reality clashes with the public image she was known for.
It's an odd duck. It's one of those things where women want a woman to be president so bad. They want one for the team so bad. And then there's so many people from the left that think she has the best chance of beating Trump or whoever is on the right, that they want her so bad. They're willing to exonerate her from so many different horrendous things. And one of the things I always point out, like, people want to talk progressive. You want to talk, being left wing, and she didn't even believe in gay marriage until 2013.
The best part was she was on NPR which is this far left, far right fringe.
Megyn Kelly shows how outdated Hillary Clinton's defenses look in today's fast-moving media world, where old spin tactics quickly fall apart under constant scrutiny. The result is a growing gap between the public image and the reality that both Joe Rogan and Kelly keep pressing on, making the tension hard to ignore. Rogan challenges the idea that history alone deserves trust, treating authority as something that must always be tested, while Kelly highlights how Clinton often frames criticism as bad faith instead of engaging with it directly. Together, they paint a picture where her long career looks less like unquestioned competence and more like a pattern of defending against scrutiny. And the humor comes from how consistently that defensiveness repeats under pressure.
What you permit, you promote. She spent all of her daughter's upbringing away, at work, at the law firm, in the White House, running for office. And Chelsea Clinton is not a nice person. And I think really is just sort of getting along based on the family name at this point. And so now she's got a daughter who I guess married a rich guy, but is struggling in her own right. Hillary's in a loveless marriage. She probably doesn't have a lot of real friends, just people who are glamour.
Just when things start to settle, Joe Rogan points to how Hillary Clinton's relationship with power can look more transactional than principled, especially in a space where motives are constantly questioned and alliances don't get automatic trust. The jokes come naturally as adaptability starts to feel less like strategy and more like shifting positions at very convenient moments. Megyn Kelly then breaks down the contradiction of someone who presents herself as highly qualified while also framing herself as constantly limited by circumstance. Rogan also highlights how Clinton's messaging often leans on moral urgency while avoiding personal vulnerability. And in conversations where certainty is tested instead of praised, that urgency can start to feel more like performance than conviction.
Go to that Hillary Clinton thing that I texted you today. This one is wild.
We do not think the comprehensive health care benefits should be extended to those who are undocumented workers and illegal aliens. We do not want to do anything to encourage more illegal immigration into this country. We know now that too many people come in for medical care as it is. We certainly don't want them having the same benefits that American citizens are entitled to have.
How about that? More MAGA than Trump.
And then
it's
you
all
couldn't believe you watched the news.
illusion.
The humor builds as moral confidence loses impact once it faces follow-up questions without protection. Megyn Kelly sharpens the critique by showing how Hillary Clinton's long public career has normalized a lack of clear resolution. Issues are raised, statements are made, narratives are shaped, but clarity often stays out of reach. She frames this not as complexity, but as a repeated pattern of deferral that feels increasingly intentional. Joe Rogan strips away the idea of transformation, presenting Clinton's legacy more as continuity than disruption, and questions why her narrative often asks for both sympathy and admiration, in a space that now prioritizes accountability. The humor comes from how her frustration with public perception starts to look less like reflection and more like irritation at scrutiny.
This woman should be in jail. Literally, Hillary Clinton should be behind bars. And so should the people who worked for her who did this. This is so blatantly corrupt. She wanted to distract from her email scandal. She cooked up a plan to accuse Trump of being a Russian agent in order to distract from her own legitimate scandal.
Megyn Kelly points out that Hillary Clinton's explanations often rely on context that seems to benefit her position, and when decisions are judged by outcomes instead of intentions, the gap between story and reality becomes harder to ignore. Joe Rogan further reduces the image around Clinton to a series of human decisions, risks, and miscalculations that were once treated as beyond question, and the humor comes from that shift as myth gives way to ordinary reality. Megyn Kelly then highlights how Clinton's defensive style feels increasingly outdated in a media environment built on transparency, where old narrative control tactics no longer hold up under constant scrutiny. In the end, Clinton is left between authority and accountability, as Rogan and Kelly both reflect a culture where no long-standing narrative survives without being challenged.